Thank you, everybody, and welcome along to 2024. First week of the year. Hope everybody enjoyed a good Christmas and New Year break. We have apologies tonight from Councillor Campbell, and our General Manager is away for a couple of weeks, so Jess is acting GM at the moment. Having reviewed tonight's agenda, would anybody like to declare a big union interest? Thank you, duly noted. Just before I move into confirmation of the minutes, I'd just like to bring to the attention of council that Tuesday last week, Graham Gould, that was a councillor here from 1984 to 2002, passed away. Very proud and very vibrant local person who had owned various businesses in the town, including the butchery, supermarket, the wine cellars up until some years back, concrete plant, might be one or two others, but was also involved with one of the subdivisions around the top end of town. And was a pretty good friend of mine. So I used to speak to him almost every day, and very sad to lose him, but police officer, I originally believe, Carl, and sorry, a police officer originally.
Yes, he was in the forces as well.
Yes, and he was part of the older people in the room, and the younger ones might remember it, but there was a peacekeeping force that went into Cyprus many years ago, which he was part of, and always reminisced about how he was taught to sleep with his rifle right beside him, and very fascinating fellow, but one of the few people that didn't like to have much to do with paperwork, that worked off a handshake, and his word was always exactly what he kept. So just like to acknowledge Graham's passing. Thank you. Confirmation of the minutes 12th of December 2023. I would move from second, please. Deputy Mayor, thank you. And Councillor Gatehouse, any changes or alterations to those minutes, please? Everybody's happy, then I shall put the motion for those minutes to be accepted. All those in favour? Thank you. Mayor's report, just need to move from second to this. Councillor Nicholas and Councillor Reid, thank you. And provide any questions regarding such report?
Through the Mayor, you're meeting with Phyllis Ellis about Filuke. Any new information on that one?
No, it was a fascinating meeting, because it's very rare you go to a meeting with 20 people in the room, the minister there, and the minister doesn't say a lot. But he, and they sat me next to the minister, so I don't know whether it was that to make me quiet or whatever, but it was a very sensible meeting, and it was more about, and it was facilitated by WLF, and which was also very sensible. It was a download of some of the major points in relation to some of the issues, but it was also the opportunity for various government departments, including the old Director of Local Government, Alan Garcia, who is now Chair of the State Fire Commission, to raise various points on why extra levy was required to keep up with the expenditure and the modernising of the fleet, and how it fight fires into the future. All that was good, but certainly a lot of strong points were raised about the difficulty of it, even to the point of they wanted to assess everything on AAB, but they hadn't stopped to think that it's 25 to 30% of the homes in the municipality low income or social housing that didn't apply for it, so that put a greater burden on others. So a little bit more homework's been done. I expect to have more notification in the next week or so of our next meeting towards the end of this month to discuss it further. There is a fair process involved even when an agreement is reached on how they might work within the levy that's already there, to increase it on a regular basis. And I don't think anybody's arguing against central funding is required, it's just how it's brought around. But even if we decide exactly that's the best way to do it, it's still quite a process to take it through legislation and everything. So, learned a lot from it. Some very sensible points both ways. Yeah, it's a good meeting to be involved.
Thank you.
Councillor Reid,
Yes, well, I was going to ask the same one, but I have another. Thank you. The last point there about the meeting with Vicar Bailey about local issues. What sort of local issues?
I think the administrative part of the meeting with me with a headache. Downloaded a fair bit of information. Vicar being a local person, just want to catch up with it before the intensity of Parliament starts up again as a relatively new member of Parliament. Work through where we've come from over the last few years, the expenditure into infrastructure, what is needed in the future. We talked about the land use strategy coming up. He had quite a few questions about planning and what we thought on that. He was very keen on a few of the projects in the community. He wants to come back and talk to the GM about it before. It was just a general bringing up to speed like we do with all politicians, all persuasions, when we have the opportunity to talk to them. Straight after that, it's not listed here, but I yesterday had a meeting with Rebecca White on the same issues, and straight after this one was with Brian Green, who's running the Legislative Council seat as well, just to bring them up to speed with everything that we do with everybody. So.
Thank you.
There's nothing else, so I'll put my report for acceptance. All those in favour? So thank you. We have no supplementary items before us tonight, and no council workshops. Stage, no questions I've noticed. The work group reports, if somebody likes to move, Councillor Reynolds, thank you, and Councillor Reid. And I'll open up the floor for questions or discussions. Anything to see in the reports? Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, through the chair. I did have one for Robert Higgins. He met with the Offsale Coordinator General and Private Development Concepts. It's just after a bit more information about what that was actually regards to, if you did.
Not a lot of claims that comes out of the Office of Coordinator General in the past, so we'll have to take that on notice to check with him when he gets back in.
Then I was just wondering if Russell, if you could give a bit of an update on the BMX track. Noted there you had something about security and timeframe.
Yeah, so pretty much just prior to Christmas, it was obvious that people wanted to use the track even though it wasn't finished. And we've got some motorised sort of scooters and those sorts of things around. We were keen to get the top coat on before it gets used. So we applied a temporary fence there while we get quotes for a permanent fence. But it's still going to need a fair bit of education, because if we're going to let public bikes in there, which is the whole idea, we want the right sort of bikes going in there and the wrong sort of bikes staying out of there. And then sort of, okay, during the day it's a bit harder after hours. So the signage is going to have to be quite prescriptive, and then it's going to be whatever level of enforcement we want to run in conjunction with probably our friends from the police department over here and a few other bits and pieces. So that's the nature of BMX tracks. They're a bit like skate parks. They're fine as long as all the users behave and do what they're meant to, but that's not always the case.
Was any damage done, or was just?
There's been a bit of rubber laid Nathan down some of the polymer that will have to be removed before the final coat. But they haven't managed. What I was really worrying was getting the polymer torn before the contractor comes back. But as of yesterday, it was fine. So there's a bit of surface stuff. They're going to do some cleaning before the last coat's gone on, but they haven't damaged the track any meaningful way today. But people have been using various portions of it.
In talking to some of the club members, they find the peer group pressure once they they start using it as a club activity, that there's more people there that want to do the right thing, so those that don't sort of become a lot more obvious than now that it has been officially open. So I believe that it will minimise pretty quickly.
But yeah, motorbikes and motocross and motorised scooters and stuff, we've really got to try and keep off the track as much as possible, whilst encouraging as many other people to use it as we possibly can.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm the general manager. I don't know whether Jess, you can, the meeting with the planning manager of Iron Creek Farms Day and residents, do you know anything about that?
No, I'm sorry.
I'll ask. Okay, the other one on page 28, and those hundreds of tyres that were removed from Townsend's Lagoon in Lewisham. Any idea of the cost, and do we have any chance of getting the money back from the removal?
I don't think, sort of through there, we haven't added up all of the costs, but the external costs, I think, are going to be in the vicinity of $10,000 to $15,000 for removal and gear that we've taken in. In terms of recouping of costs, we'll take, the only way to do that would be through the magistrate's court under the Drainage Act. So we'll probably take legal advice about the likely cost versus the likely benefit. So I think we will try, but we need to be wary about how much we're going to further commit. Yeah.
There is a sign on the fence saying no more food.
Yeah.
That's something.
And I know that the mayor did ask me about the row of tyres that are still sitting across the lake there that was put in by one of the property owners, basically to stop sheep getting under it when it was dry. There is a bit of a commitment between them and the contractor that they will remove those tyres for us as well. So that's a good thing. And I do know the EHO was talking about establishing some spatial references about where the fuel was, so that in future years we can actually definitively say where we've now back to compared to where it is in the future.
Good job. Good job. And just one more, the Dodgers Ferry school and the lagoons, and the upgrade of the lagoons by Taswater, and the council is concerned that it's, it should be earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, so through Mary, I've been dealing with the project manager, but I did get an email from the general manager of Taswater saying he wants the project manager to look at the timing for that, but they are currently on leave, so he is aware that it's been dragging on for too long. With the lagoons, there'll be a new system goes in, and those lagoons will be rehabilitated by Taswater. So we won't be upgrading the existing lagoons, we'll get a chance to revegetate. It's more about finding a disposal area for where the new system comes in, which will obviously have to run the planning, through the planning process when it is the design gets done. So I'm not so worried about the footy club rooms, I'm more worried about the size of the footprint for the school and Acorns, ultimately.
Well, they're running out of space.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
they're really running out of space.
Yep.
It was part of my discussion also with the three political people that I spoke to in the last couple of days, and it's been part of conversation with politicians to increase that pressure. It was also part going back into November of when I was able to address the Taswater board and projects like that. Although minor to the size of Taswater board were very important to growth of the school, and the school can't expand because of the water and sewage.
And just also for the council, that whilst Taswater will fund the capital works part of the project, it won't become part of their network. So council will retain ownership of the footy club room system that goes in and have to maintain that, and similarly the education department / Oaklands, depending on how that, we'll have to pay the ongoing operating cost of that one as well. So Taswater aren't extending their services, they will fix them up, but it will be a one-off deal, and then the users will be up to the maintenance of those systems from then on. So they're not extending their service land
That was
line.
going to be my next question. It's a shame. it wasn't
It's a
taken
shame,
over at the
but
time.
they basically draw the line and said, we see it as a legacy issue, but it'll be a one-off legacy issue, which they will pay for and then effectively walk away. So just so you're aware,
That's
that'll be part of the overall deal.
Through there, so further to that, the timing wise, how do you see it fitting in with the proposed upgrade of the school?
Well, that's what I put to the CEO of Taswater and said, they're doing the work at the moment, so it needs to be imminent.
They need to-
And they probably want some more temporary classrooms, which I don't think Brett should be left with the invidious position of having to say no because we don't know that the wastewater system will cope with it. So that's what we put back on Taswater's doorstep. And at least, like I said, we've got a direct line with the CEO at the moment and we'll hope that that bears some fruit.
The upgrade's been priority one for many years now, so.
Yeah, and I think in reality, our regulatory DA section ain't going to be able to approve that without a sustainable wastewater solution with a time.
If I may, on page 29, the waste management report, just wondering, it was good to see the arrangements around bins at Christmas seem to have been effective, and there certainly hasn't been the usual community angst around those, so that's really good. But in terms of more broadly, soft plastics and container deposit scheme, is there any sense of a time frame for those yet?
No.
No.
There's been a couple of changes with the waste levy, what we call the new government department, the natural resource management, have now passed over their waste staff to the new state waste board. To sort of side shift them so there's greater capacity for concentration on some of the workload. Our CEO of the Southern Tasmanian Regional Waste Authority is in direct contact almost daily, weekly with Hugh Christie, that is the CEO of the Waste Group now. And it's progressing, but there's not a timeline there that we feel we can talk about at this stage. We have got a meeting tomorrow or Thursday, I can't quite remember, so I might know more to pass on then, but there's no dead set timeline in place.
And the container deposit problem is a planning issue where the proponents want relaxation of how close they're allowed to have those depots to residential boundaries. So they want half what actually is prescribed under planning. So there's a bit of a standoff between the government and potential tenderers. So that's why that's going on there.
Okay. Right.
Yes, I agree.
So follow-up question if I may. So what is the local government sector doing as a whole to advocate for some movement?
We're in, like I said, daily weekly contact with Hugh. Hugh's only been in the role for 3.5 months now, but he's not a government employee. He's from the business world, so he's pushing pretty hard at the moment, the need for it, but there is certain legislative requirements on planning and a couple of other issues that need to be, but the whole industry is pushing hard for it. A lot of the regional councils are no different to us. They've got recycling centres that they need to address and how we handle all that waste. There's quite a few emails starting to come through in the last week from different people involved in it.
And the public have started storing up, containers with the idea of using it and can't use the, there isn't a plan to when the facility's going to be there. So that's all good too.
Yeah. I'd say in the next couple of months we're going to have a clearer idea. Whether the pending election increases the focus on that or decreases, I'm not sure at this point.
Thank you.
There's no other questions, I'll put the reports for acceptance. All those in favour? 11.1, there are no petitions before us at the moment. Land use planning, the Mayor advised in accordance with the revision of Part 2 Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulation 2015, the intention of the Council to act as a planning authority pursuant to the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 is to be noted. In accordance with Regulation 25, the Council will act as a planning authority in respect to those matters appearing under item 12 of the agenda, inclusive of any supplementary items. 12.1, can I move please to the minutes from the SPA meeting on the 5th and the 12th of December. Councillor Reid, thank you, and a second is Councillor Premier, and invite any comment or queries on those minutes. I shall put the motion for those to be accepted as recommended. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. 13.1 is governance. 13.1 is the motion passed at the Council AGM regarding phone seed. Shall we move for this, please? Councillor Reid, second Councillor Moreira-Casado, thank you. And open the floor up for comment in regards to the General Manager's reply and comment on this.
Sorry, on what page is that, please?
42.
Thank you.
Councillor.
Thank you. I do have a question about how, it's like a general question about motions put by members of the public, and what this motion means. So we have a recommendation, but the recommendation is the same motion put forward. So that means that when we vote, we are approving that. Is that correct?
We are bringing the motion that was raised at the AGM to the first General Council meeting for discussion on it, and the General Manager has his comments there. Yeah.
So when we vote, we accept it as that it will be acted upon, or?
Well, the actions still fit within what is required and what is possible by Council. It is the motion that was passed at the AGM, and under AGM rules and regulations that comes forward for discussion at this meeting. So.
Through the Mayor, perhaps by way of observation, I think that the wording in means available relates to, provides that context, and the comment has spelled that out in terms of what Council is actually doing on the front, so it satisfies the intent of the motion, I think.
Sorry, Councillor, I'm just looking at the notes.
Were you going to ask something?
No, you're right.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, so in page 43, it says the road ahead. And it says that council is developing the weed strategies, right?
Yes.
So that means that this will be embedded in it, or is already in it. So what I'm trying to understand is if there's already actions that are being taken, and or is there new things that are going to be added because of this motion? So what I'm trying to understand is if because the motion came about, we will be adding to the work that council is being done.
It's through the Mayor. Again, it's my understanding, just in broad terms, through the that those points 1 to 5 describe what's already happening, and because bone seeds are, because council through the NRM officer has increased focus on weed management strategy over the last, was it 2 years?
He's drafted a weed strategy.
Yeah.
I would have thought it would be considered by the NRM committee once they've agreed the overall framework. and then the implementation plan that would go with that, would be the way forward for me.
There's sort of operational things that are
Already there.
already there because of that role of the weed, is it a weed management officer or what, that part of the NRM role. And in broad terms, those strategies are already in play, but through the NRM strategy, they'll fit into the NRM strategy.
Thank you.
Yes, I was just trying to think of the grass that we had recently.
Serrated tussocks?
Serrated tussock, that was it. I was just looking at this, trying to remember that. That's in terrible proportions in Connolly's Marsh area and a few other spots like that. And the boxthorn has also been raised as problem in the community from different areas, so that's why the need of a weed strategy that covers all this and what's in within NRM to be able to do something about it, because it is quite comprehensive now, the amount of weeds that are causing problems. So I've got large scale to private and farming communities. And council really does have its hands tied on what it can do outside of roadside booths, really.
Yeah, I think it's got an education role to do with the community, that it's a one in all, if you're going to eradicate it for an area, all parties have to be part of that in some way, shape or form, because otherwise you're just doing work and then doing rework and rework what the minister says.
So what it is, does it's spreading like wildfire.
Yeah.
I mean, Burns Street's incredible, but who controls it, say, on the beach and on the St. James account, where it's totally out of control?
Well, the land.
Big job.
Yeah.
What would be
So basically,
not us.
so Crown would have responsibility for the landowner, so they have a 3 units program at present to control that.
So can we twist their arm on this?
We talk regularly on these sorts of things, but with Crown and Parks, there is no twisting. It's more ducking for cover. If you go back 25, 30 years ago, NRM and Coast Care used to have various programs in place of supplying chemicals for at a reduced rate for private councils and government to deal with. That created all sorts of problems in being able to make sure that things were done properly and safely. So that program died out quite a few years ago. It was largely successful for those who did the right thing, but in this day and age where everybody has to be trained in chemical usage, even removal, even burning, even how you handle some of these different weeds, we live in a different world now, so everybody needs to be involved, but we can't get to that point of agreeing on it.
But the government does fund specific programs, unfortunately, rather than general programs, so it's reasonably funded some removal of chili needle grass, which we're part of, but boxthorn and bone seed would be probably a couple of our bigger ones, and they're not eligible under those grant funds at the moment. So that's where some of the difficulty comes in.
If it didn't involve use of poisons, what about just well-intentioned community groups just cutting the stuff?
Yeah.
The base, I mean, I know it can come back, but it cuts fairly easily.
Once again, you need to have a program in place. That's
Yes, that's the sort of experience that the local land care groups and others have continued from those programs years ago, and they've continued the same approach. So it's about spreading, probably poor choice of words, but spreading the word around that, and that's reflected in the comments here about taking lots of different, combining lots of different strategies.
We can discuss it further with the GM about what that strategy might look at a workshop.
And we have the second of the NRM and environment advisory group meetings tomorrow and progressing the strategy. So the NRM strategy, and this will be part of it.
Thank you. With that, I'll put the motion to acceptance. Thank you. 13.2 is another motion passed at the council AGM meeting regarding the Esters Australia flight pass. Thank you. Councillor Gatehouse. Ask for comment. Well, thank you. If it's there and the debate goes on.
A question, if I may, in terms of, and apologies if it's me that I've overlooked it, is the role of our federal representatives, senators and federal parliament, because this is a federal matter, essentially, isn't it? In terms of the jurisdiction. So I would hope that part of the advocacy is supporting the community to offer those avenues as well.
Yes, several senators were involved early in the piece, but of course they're flying in and out of Hobart all the time to Canberra. I haven't heard too much from our federal representatives in quite a long time. Not that it's Phil anyway.
Interested to look further into that.
Yeah. Yes, there was a lot of pressure brought to bear in the first place for a more open discussion, which they probably did facilitate. But there it's been counted again every time someone's moved, so. So other comments to that, I'll put the motion of acceptance to the general manager's details there. All those in favour? Thank you. 13.3 is the safeguarding children and young people policy. Have a mover, please, for this. Councillor Reid, Councillor Miro Casado, thank you. And this has been a bit of work for you, Jess, I guess, and probably know first on council has had more to do with youth development than Jess for all the working life. Fair bit in this. Questions regarding this policy?
Thank you. I do have a question. So there was something like this before, or this is completely new?
This is completely new. So it's a requirement from the 1st of January that all organisations have safeguarding children and young people's policy.
You
So,
touch on the government policy changes that we're listening to?
Yes, so in the report it said that as following the Royal Commission, there was changes to the Safeguarding Children and Young People Act, and there's a number of recommendations in that and requirements for organisations to meet to strengthen how they can provide a safe environment for children and young people. So this policy sort of outlines how we're going to meet our obligations going forward, and it's consistent with the approach taken across most of the councils within the state.
The GAP's been involved overall, and the government's appointed new people into significant positions to pursue this on a state basis. Still a work in action, a fair bit. We are working pretty closely with Liam McLean from the Commissioner for Children to make sure that some of our youth programs that we'd like to work on during 2024 will still fit and comply and what we need to do and think about differently. It's a lot of common sense to more people, but it is certainly a change in focus of a much greater level from the government, which is requiring a more detailed response from council and some of these things.
You say on page 52 that recommendation 6.12 is not something council can currently fully embrace with our current resources, and it seems to be something that the government is saying with this, excuse me, with the support from governments at national, state and territory levels, which is a statement in 6.12. Have the governments indicated how they're going to support councils to fulfil this role?
Through the mayor, no, they haven't, and through the advocacy of the GAP, they haven't had a response from the other levels of government about how they can support councils to meet that obligation for management sector. So, but they're continuing to work on that.
Thank you.
And that's been a consistent response from councils across the state that without that support, the councils aren't resourced to and funded to be able to make that recommendation. Thank you.
Sorell.
Thank you, through the chair. Do councils have to provide a safeguarding officer, or that's not needed within a council? And will councillors and other staff have to do mandatory reporting training?
Through the Mayor, that, I think your question was similar to Councillor Gatehouse's in terms of the safeguarding children officer, and that's been the consistent response is that councils aren't able to resource or fund that at this point, and that's what they're seeking support for from other levels of government.
I think councils are exempt. I wasn't real sure how that's happening.
Yeah, my understanding that we're not exempt from that. In the policy, it outlines the obligations and responsibilities in terms of who's obligated to report, which is anybody who becomes aware of something has an obligation to report it to the officer, who then reports it to the independent regulator. So there won't be mandatory training.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else, I shall put the motion for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. 13.4 is policy review, audio visual recording and the vehicular access to property policy. Move and second this, please. Councillor Nicholas, thank you. And the second, Councillor Renius, thank you. And invite discussion regarding the update on these two policies.
Can I ask why the two policies have been put together and just endorse the youth and child as a singular, singular endorsement, whereas these two, which are very different, have been put together for recommendation for one endorsement.
I would say that one was a new policy where these are just revised policies for update.
That's correct. The safeguarding children and young people was a new policy, and in previous council meetings, there's been multiple policies that have been reviewed and updated. They'll go collectively to council for endorsement.
Okay. I find that. Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, I think to your question, Janet, I think it would be good for easier managing comments or discussion to have it separate. Is there a way that we can have it separate now?
The amendment can be moved to separate them up. Once again, it's only endorsing policies that have had updates to them, so you can still talk to each individual policy or each line of the recommendation the same, or you can move an amendment to have them separated. Same conversation, still the same things.
But for example, if one were laid on the table, both would have to be laid on the table if they're together.
You could certainly have an amendment that to still deal with whichever one you wanted, and the amendment can also list the one that needs to lay on the table. With the mover and the seconder, and vote on that change, on that amendment.
I believe on the first part of that meeting recording, there was some request for information from the councillors around options or how the once it's online, how that actually works. I can't remember the detail, but has that information been provided? I think it was at the previous workshop. I think it was Councillor Campbell perhaps, yeah.
I recall at the council workshop, Councillor Campbell asking for that information, and it is effectively the same as what we're doing right now in the council meeting. So it would be set up exactly the same as is current practice for our council meetings as we're doing right now. So it's an extension of the existing policy to open up the accessibility for the community to view the meeting without physically attending as they can for the council meeting, which we receive regular requests for our planning team. We weren't able to answer that question at the workshop, but I've since spoken to the manager of planning, and it's a regular query, and members of the community do go to our website expecting to see the live streaming of the SPA meeting, and they gave an account of people actually watching the entire council meeting and waiting for the SPA meeting because it wasn't available elsewhere. So.
Yeah, I'm fully supportive of making it available. I think from memory, the questions were more around the technology, around security and shareability and that sort of thing, and I'm not quite across what the intent was. Councillor Campbell's not here to talk to it, but that was more what my question was, in terms of have we considered the questions we put. And I don't think we have.
I'm going to be very quiet on that because the mayor is not the person to talk to about social media.
Yes.
Through the mayor, the questions really, I mean, as we know, once something is online, it's online and it's available and accessible, so it's, the answer is really exactly the same as the council meeting now, it's publicly accessible.
And I do know that, you know, it's a very common methodology in terms of making, once you've decided something's in public domain, you're making it available through YouTube is quite common.
Yes, it is. And so have we talked about the subject about those that aren't doing it now, right around the country? Is there any other comments on this bill?
Through the mayor,
Yes.
if the councillors would like a further discussion on the audio visual policy, then I am happy to put forward a motion to split the endorsement into two parts, so we can, if Councillor Campbell would like to discuss this on her return, I'm not quite sure how, if the other councillors would like further discussion of it at the workshop, I'm happy to support that.
Could I suggest that we might just, if there's anything on the vehicular access, just then the motion may be to pass that and lay the other one on the table, and which would be much tidier instead of passing this first. So, is if you're happy, Councillor Gayos, for us just have a chat about the vehicular access to property policy, and then we'll do a flip flop and come back to that and tidy it up, possibly tidy it up with one motion.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm happy to
Yep.
support that.
Yeah, when you start to read the vehicular access, you wonder why we've got to have a policy like that, but as you read further into it, you certainly understand that some of the complications that council staff have before them. So I've forgotten about the policy and some of the intricate little notes in amongst it. So I'd like you to comment on that side of things.
Through the mayor, just for clarification, in this case, as in the other one, it's amending the policy, the highlights are the amendments.
Correct.
Okay. So it's fine tuning.
Through the mayor, is this in line with the new planning rules and regs? The new planning scheme as opposed to the, does it apply to the planning scheme? Is it in line with it being?
I believe it applies more to the Highway Act.
Yeah. And the bylaw,
Bylaws, yes.
Okay.
But as the mayor said, the number of customer requests we get about this particular issue is disproportionate, because everybody's got access.
Yes, that's what I,
And there's quite a lack of understanding that the property owner actually has that culvert responsibility of cleaning it out and all those other things that go with this policy. It's probably not that particularly well understood, in general in the wider community. So having a policy at least gives people something to have a look at as well.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, had that always been the case, or did it change? Was it in my time as a property owner here? That's my memory, that at one point it was more a council managed thing and then shifted to being more private.
I think under the municipal standards, it's always been a private issue. So in other words, we own the corridor and the road in it,
Yep.
but anything that comes to the property, but anything that comes off and access to the property is owned by the property owner.
Right. I'm thinking of where culverts were first put in, probably not in the highly engineered way that we do it now, but in the, let's just,
That the may or may not have been deals done in the past, but
right,
for the foreseeable past, the property owner has had to do that work and fund that work.
right, okay. There might be some local, curious.
Yeah, it's tricky. And as far as I'm concerned, it's standard amongst all the existing 29 councils that's the requirement.
Thank you.
We've had a few issues as drainage work becomes more apparent in some areas where people have got all sorts of provisions and they need to be upgraded. We've had many conversations, both as councillors out with some very aggressive people and others not understanding the need for the effect of drainage of their neighbours as well, in some instances because of a damming system they put in that doesn't comply. So Tim's got a very awkward job from engineering most of the time dealing with all of those crossovers and changes.
I guess I was wondering where that heightened expectation comes from, that people expect there's a drain, therefore it must be council's job or something like that.
I don't think it's any different from just driving the road network and more expecting the councillor responsible for the whole network, councillor Reid. There's an education process there with the community about responsibility and who has it.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Some of the storm events that we're experiencing over the last 3, 4, 5 years are certainly highlighting some of these issues that the council needs to address as a drainage issue, but we can't address it sometimes if somebody's not doing the right thing with their own crossover. So there is a lot of discussions take place. Most people are sensible and understand, and but some aren't.
There's plenty of legacy issues as you expect, as you point out.
Let's just put a stop in place. So is everybody happy with that side of it? Right, going back to Councillor Gage with the recommendation to lay one on, can I just ask for a bit of guidance from acting GM just there on probably the wording of how that might be and see if you agree with this wording?
So you could possibly amend the motion to say that council resolved to endorse the particular policy and lay on the table the audio visual.
I'm happy with that, thank you very much.
And Councillor Sally, you'll have to second that.
I second that, yes.
So we have an amendment to the existing motion. Does everybody understand that? The amendment is for passing the vehicular side of things and then laying the other part on the table. Has anybody got any clarification questions on that amendment at all?
I don't quite understand why we're laying it on the table. I mean, sorry, maybe it's my background, but it seems to me anything that enforces public transparency is good. then the public don't like things that are closed out. We saw that with the court system in Tasmania when they closed the court to the media. And you know, like, this is just motherhood stuff. I mean, why wouldn't we be quite prepared for people to see what we're seeing? If we're not, it looks like we've got something to hide. Now, admittedly, that's a journalist's viewpoint, but a lot of people feel that way. Do we really need to discuss this any further?
A amendment, was going to be put, if you don't agree with the amendment, it's like, you don't have to support it, it's like any vote. It's for or against, but, amendment's been raised, so, to take the vehicular through, but, lay the other one on the table, and that is up for voting. So I'll put that motion on the amendment to lay the other one on the table. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. So the motion now is, sorry, remember being passed, does that pass the motion? Yeah, so we've still got we've got the amendment motion before us. Of laying the visual, I haven't got it in front of me anymore, sorry, the audio visual part of it on the table for discussion at the next general workshop. I should now put that to the vote. All those in favour? Passed. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to 15.1, Community Grants Program, Annual Contribution. Move for this, please. Thank you, Councillor Trenius, and the seconder. Councillor Reid, thank you. Recommendation is for a 5-year period for support for the Nugent Community Sports Centre. Obviously, the old agreement has run out, expired, and recommendation is from staff that we continue it. Any discussion on regarding this at all? Councillor Reid?
I'd just like to endorse the strategy of making long-term agreements rather than having shorter ones, and that provides certainty for all parties. And it's a good way to go, particularly, well, in cases like this where there's a long-established partnership with council and with the community. So, good to see.
Thank you. I will put that motion now for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much. 15.2 is the Community Grants Program. All from Rumour, thank you. Councillor Gades, thank you, and Councillor Reynolds, thank you. Invite discussion and comment regarding to the 3 proposals before us. I understand there's been some changes to the Sorell Community Network, incorporated now to what it was, some of the concerns we raised originally. So they're now incorporated body in their own right. Yes, Councillor.
Further to my previous point, I think, not standing in the way of this, but reflecting on it in the next few weeks or months to consider whether some of these sorts of things can be done on more of a long-term partnership arrangement rather than a grant by grant arrangement, and just see if there's merit in progressing that with more organisations.
Yes, I guess one of the dangers of locking in too many is the way groups change in the community and who is running and what their focus is on the group, and it still comes out of the same pot of money. So I fully agree to lock in some of the ongoing ones that have the broad coverage like halls do for parts of our community or regions of our community. But we have to be careful though, if we lock in too many, that takes away our flexibility to be able to fund things that come up at the appropriate time, and the pot is only so big, and I guarantee it's going to get pretty tight over the next few years. understand what you're saying, and there's some that we do on a regular basis, but, when you look at them over a period of time, there are ups and downs that sometimes need scrutineering and looking at on whether, what part of that we may fund, so, point taken there. Councillor Reynolds?
I'd just like to make note about the Sorell Community Networking. I've been watching them, and they're doing some fantastic work around the community. I'm just looking forward to seeing how they progress, considering they're such a new group. And I did have some questions around the maintenance of the equipment and upkeep and how that will go, but I guess there's a bit of grass there. I mean, we'll see where they get to.
Yeah, it's very hard with some of those things. We're talking about a relatively small amount of money. The upkeep and maintenance of that gear so it just doesn't deteriorate quickly and then another grant replace comes around, or with some when we buy equipment, if the group changes or follows or people know what to do, what happens to that equipment. That's been a discussion point for a number of years now. Sometimes it's handed on to a similar organisation to do, but I think there's probably a few questions there for us to ask, because we are dealing with public money, ratepayer money, so we do have to be conscious of some of those points. And although I don't think we can become dictatorial on how some of these people use it, it may be that we do have a suggestion sheet or something like that on some points that we would like to see. That's no different to council being recognised as a supporter of some of these community things that are bought as well. Councillor Trins.
Yes, could you just refresh my memory on that particular purchase of garden equipment? We had a discussion, I believe, the equipment was, council was going to,
Pickleball, we were going to buy it instead of
That's
giving the
right,
money
that's
so that
right.
the equipment stayed with the stadiums.
Right.
Yeah, this one's a little bit different because now they're incorporated body.
Yeah.
There were some concerns about
Thank you.
housing it forward.
No, yeah,
It's since been clarified.
now that they're incorporated, okay.
Yep. There's no more questions on that. I shall put the motion 15.2 community grants program for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Expect to see you all country music muster at Queensland. A couple of regulars.
It's a good event.
Yes.
Wow.
You on?
I'm one, yeah. Not a performer.
Oh. You know, group scooting, but
No, it's good.
there's actually quite a few very talented young people get up and perform down there, and it's quite amazing.
It's very disappointing that Chad Morgan isn't going to be there this year. Apparently he's ill. So, he was a very good entertainer at 90.
Well, he's 119, isn't he? He's a rector at the Lake League Hotel, and his illness has prevented him there for some time now. But, the sheep from where it was? There you go. Yes, he's all fans of I'm sure Phil and Tam will provide good entertainment down there for everybody. Just 16.1, executive summary financial report. Can I move to this, please? Councillor Bass and Deputy Mayor, thank you. Typical December with people slow getting their invoices in to tidy up for the end of the calendar year. It's still there very tidy when you allow for a bit of that. I might just put a question, Russell, there's a fair bit of mention in here about some of the CapEx program not quite being to where it had to be, and
I think the CapEx program isn't going too bad. I think it was sort of a report. We've done about 6 million out of 14 million in the first half of the year, which is pretty good compared to my fellow common councils in terms of how much they expended of their capital works program. There's underspending in maintenance because the crews have been doing some of the prep work for the sealing program and the unsealed, but Dave says that will write itself in the next couple of months.
I must say the programs that David is overseeing these days appear to be working well with culverts and roadsides and quite a bit of that thing looking pretty slick actually. Yep. Just nothing else on the finances at all? Certainly, as always, a huge amount of information there. I should put the motion for acceptance of the financials. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. 16.2 is the 23-24 capital budget adjustments. Thank you. Councillor Trinius, thank you, and Councillor Reynolds, thanks very much. Is all that green waste bins and?
That's the major changes, the purchase of the green bins for the community.
Yeah.
I have a short question. Yes.
Right, so, thank you.
Just a technical question. This is similar to what we approved or we discussed last council meeting, correct? So this is just minor adjustments to what was approved. So did we just approve something like this?
Yeah, so every month you will get, so we've got a rolling program now rather than mid-year budget review. So as we become aware of a project that's either under or over budget at the time we are, we're making that declaration at the time to council rather than wait till the end of a financial year or a mid-year budget review. So every month you will see some potentially variations or no variations to the capital works, and if you added all those fun stuff over a year, you get to exactly the same place. But you're being told as it occurs rather than wait to some point probably down the road when probably there's not much you can do about it if you did have some comments. So it's another effort to try and be a little bit more transparent and timely in terms of where the projects are currently at from a council perspective.
So the reason, so when it's reviewed at the end of the financial, or the beginning or end of the financial year, so then it's not a timely thing. Is that correct? So is that
yes. So what used to happen, if you like, is we would go through the first 6 months of the year and collect all the projects that were over and under, and then report that in the mid-year budget, and that would then adjust all the mid-year budget capital reviews. So what we're doing now is as each project, if it is over and under, we're reporting it at that time and making that change to the capital works program. So it's become a rolling adjustment program rather than a program that's maybe only adjusted twice a year. Okay?
Yes, so that means that, so our financials are updated, all that, it's better.
Yeah.
So we have a better picture month to month.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
No questions for that adjustment, I shall put it for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you very much. And with that, we move to, no questions on notice there, have we? Or yes, we have got one there. The questions on notice is from Greg Grimfield of Primrose Sands. Just like an oversight by the GM on the question that was raised at the community meeting. And the response is there in relation to planning and compliance. That is accepted, and we move also to just general questions from the public. Great.
Certainly I want to just expand on and actually amend their questions, because some information that I became aware of at 5:30 this afternoon was that the council does actually have a policy on shipping containers, and it's contained in the info sheet on general residential and low density zones in outbuildings. So it is actually mentioned there. Certainly, I just would like to comment on community conversations. They are very valuable tool for the community to provide feedback to the council and or bring to the attention of the council any issues. And certainly as a Primrose Sands resident, very happy with everything that sort of happened as a result of those community conversations, except being notified about this. And oddly enough, this version here is version 1 of November 2022. When I originally raised this in August 2022, I received no response, raised it again at the community conversation in July last year, and still had no response. So that was a little bit disappointing as a resident. But I suppose now does the council police non-compliance with regard to our buildings? Or is non-compliance only addressed from a complaint?
Yes, yes. Huge role to do, and quite often it is by complaint, but I'll ask Russell to clarify that a bit more officially.
Yeah, so through now, I'd say it's fair to say, Greg, that those that come through complaint get the priority.
Yep.
But when our non-compliance officers are out there looking at that area, they're looking at other areas as well.
Yeah.
We do actually have we never used to have a dedicated compliance team, but as part of the restructure now, particularly in the building and to some degree the planning, you have got some dedicated resources now going into compliance. But as the Mayor said, we've got a fair area.
Yeah.
But if we start to see, I suppose, a lot of complaints in a certain area, it will get some focus.
Yeah.
And look, sorry, Greg, the other side that we have noticed very different from our planning side is the use of the upgraded technology of what we call Google Maps.
Yeah.
Council work on a GIS system that's a lot more advanced, and quite often things are found and noticed in amongst modern technology now that we couldn't do before. So
for instance, we go out and look at caravans and stuff, and we see a shipping container as part of that, it will get picked up. But we might not specifically go out and do a shipping container survey per se, but when the compliance officers are out there looking at other issues, and that's part of their responsibilities.
Is it possible for me just to pass this around, just to sort of give the councillors an idea of the impact it has of non-compliance?
yeah, there's no question.
Thank you.
It's very unusual for the GM to miss something like that.
Yeah.
Back when Jackie was
I know it's
in the community, we took great pride in the flow of information and the questions that we're able to answer after the fact if we can't answer on the night. And it's quite unusual for something like that to be missed by Robert, so I do apologise for that.
No, that's all right. He did apologise last year for the not getting to me the year before, but that's all good. Yeah. No, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sharon.
Are you able to tell the community yet where the upgrades to the Arthur Highway are going to occur with is it 50 million that the government is putting towards it?
I certainly haven't heard anything. I had to ask the question a couple of times. But Russell, have you heard anything from the ministry for that?
Yeah, the department hasn't published what they're going to do, Sharon, but they've returned, right, even though we've all contributed and you and a number of other people, they have kept veto over what they're going to fund and what they haven't, but they haven't published their list yet. So they will make despite, well, fair enough, we've all contributed, but they have reserved the right to decide which of those projects they're going to go ahead with.
Is there a time scale on it? Have they put a time?
I think there is a time scale loosely by the government. I mean, we've been certainly pushing, as we've discussed, for the more expensive options, which are the overtaking lanes over a decent distance, so we actually achieve what we want. But we'll see what the department does with that. But I'm pretty sure that the government did set basically a time that they wanted the grants to be spent over, but I'm not sure whether the department's committed to that, because as you've seen, we've got a number of other projects around the city. Those timeframes have tended to be a bit flexible as per some other projects you've asked about over the journey.
I'm going to ask about another one in a minute too. What's happening with the causeway doubling up?
Yes, I'm sure Russell's more updated than I am on that, but Sarah, I'm pretty sure from the work certainly is in semi-regular communication think I've reported before that Joe might not have done. In the lead up to Christmas, there was divers doing a line inspection of the seabed. There was 3 or 4 of them. I think I saw a few feet apart from one another doing a check on where the either side of the causeway, and the middens checks were done probably 4 months ago, 3 months ago. The designs haven't been released or at a point, even the concepts at this stage, and we were thinking that would have them about now. We haven't quite received them yet.
I'm happy on the mayor's behalf to see if I can get a response out of the department before the next council meeting for you. It might be fairly bland, but I'll attempt to at least get something in writing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Russell, appreciate it, thank you.
And the GM did meet only a few weeks before Christmas with the general manager of Main Roads to try and clarify a few of those points too, but I'm not sure on what happened.
I mean, the positive and negative, the positive is the feds are still funding it, Sharon, the negative is when are they going to do it, obviously, so that's what we're going to try and sort out.
Thank you.
When the Bridgewater Bridge is finished, I really think.
And I'll be brief.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We now need to move into close, so I appreciate you coming along and getting your questions, and welcome to 2024, everybody. And, thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.